joined. Yes. I look at the funding and group development for the Ealing Borough. And that's about me. Thank you. Ian, you want to go next?
Yeah, my name's Ian Elliott. So I'm Funding and Group Development Officer supporting primarily Hounslow groups for Ealing and Hounslow CBS. Contact details in the chat. I can circulate that afterwards for help with networking. So thanks for joining us at this Lloyds Bank Foundation session. We have Sarah Cooney here from Lloyds Banks who's going to give a presentation about the fund, and there'll be time for questions afterwards. So if you can keep your mics muted during the presentation, and then during the questions you can either put your hand up or speak out when your microphones are muted. So we'll hand over to Sarah.
Sorry, for some reason it didn't want to unmute me there. Maybe it's had enough of me speaking. Hi everyone, really good to meet you all, albeit virtually, this morning, and thank you for giving time to come and meet with us. Just to mention also, the session is being recorded, so if that's an issue for anyone, please do let us know. But you know, it helps us that we're going to be able to share the recording afterwards. So just to introduce myself, my name is Sarah Cooney. I'm the local manager for the Lloyds Bank Foundation. And so as Ian said, I'll be doing a bit of maybe about a presentation that'll take maybe 15-20 minutes. And then we've lots of times for questions and answers, questions which hopefully I can try to answer. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now, and hopefully this works. It did in the test. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Just to check, can anyone, Ian, can you let me know whether that's up and showing and all okay?
Yeah, we can see it, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. So I said, my name is Sarah Cooney and I'm here on behalf of the Lloyds Bank Foundation for England and Wales, which I know some of the people in the room, but not everyone. So the reason I'm here today is to introduce you to the Lloyds Bank Foundation for England and Wales, but more specifically to talk about our current grant programme and how our eligibility criteria, what the different strands within the funding programme are, and how you can apply and what our application process looks like. And I said then at the end there will be time for questions. So just to give you a very brief introduction into the Lloyds Bank Foundation for England and Wales. We are a charitable trust. We were set up some 35 years ago. Our funding comes from the Lloyds Banking Group. And we work closely with the banking group also in relation to things like volunteering and other kinds of support primarily around skill volunteering that where colleagues from within the banking group volunteer with charities we work with as well as giving us the fund, as well as providing the funding that we then share with our charity partners. So coming on to talk about our grant programme. Our current grant programme launched slightly earlier this year. And it is through the grant programme where we currently have, we are offering unrestricted grants of £50,000. So that's £25,000 a year over 2 years. There are no deadlines to apply. The programme is going to be running until early to mid next year. But just to highlight that in terms of thinking about timescales for decisions, anyone who wants to receive a decision before the end of September would need to be putting in their application before the end of this month. We work across England and Wales, as our name suggests, and we are expecting to support in the region of 190 charities across England and Wales in this calendar year. And so that we have a grant budget of in the region of £9.5 million to do that. And we are expecting and aiming that at least 25% of our funding will be going to charities which are led by Black and minoritized communities, delivering services supporting Black and minoritized communities. So that's the offer that's the grant offer as such. So if you're interested in applying to us, we do have some quite specific eligibility criteria. So to apply to us, you need to be a registered charity based in England and Wales, delivering services primarily in England and Wales, with an annual income between £25,000 and £1 million. And that would be the annual income that shows in your most recent set of annual accounts. We do look to support charities who can demonstrate a track record of the work that they do. So you will need to have been delivering services for at least a year. Our focus is on work with adults. So we would expect to see the majority of your work is with people aged 17 and upwards. The only exception to that is young parents, where, you know, it could well be that you're working with people younger than 17. Our aim is to work with charities that we can see do need our funding. So to be eligible to us, you would need to have had less than the equivalent of 12 months free reserves in your last set of, at the end of your last financial year, as shown in your last set of annual accounts. And so by free reserves, we mean your unrestricted reserves, not including the value of any fixed assets, properties or anything else within that. As I said, we do, at the moment, you must be a registered charity to apply to us, and we'd expect to see that you have at least 1 year of accounts showing on the Charity Commission's website, and you need to have your own bank account in the charity's name. Forgive me. Some other eligibility criteria in there is that we would expect you to see that you have a minimum of 3 trustees and who are unrelated to each other. So that's our basic eligibility criteria as such. In terms of our funding program, there are two strands, if you like, of our funding program. One focuses on complex social issues. The other also focuses on complex social issues, but it has slightly different criteria in that it is our racial equity strand. So it is specifically aimed at supporting or charities which are led by, so a majority of the trustees would self-identify as being from a Black or minoritized community and delivering services that are supporting Black and minoritized communities. So coming on to talk about the first strand of our funding, complex social issues. So there are 11 complex social issues that we fund in terms of charities supporting people experiencing these issues, but we don't fund all of those issues in every area. So we have what we call regional priorities. So these are the issues that currently we are looking to support in both Ealing and Hounslow. So in Ealing, in both areas, we are supporting charities working with people experiencing addiction or dependency on alcohol, drugs, or gambling. We are supporting work which is focused on supporting people who are seeking asylum, so are in the asylum process, application process, or who have gained their leave to remain, and then in the period where they're becoming more integrated into the community. So really looking at the support in the 2 years after receiving the leave to remain, because that's a time of often where there's where there can be great need for support given our current systems. We support work with young people who are care experienced, who are leaving care to live more independently. We support work with people who are either with charities who are working with people who are homeless or who are extremely vulnerably housed, by which we mean people at really high risk of losing their accommodation in the very near future. We support work with people who are experiencing mental ill health, and that has a focus on working with people with diagnosed mental health conditions and where those health conditions are impacting on their daily lives. At the moment, for example, in Ealing, we're supporting the charity Cape, whom some of you may know. Other areas which we're looking to support are charities who are working with people who have come into contact with the criminal justice system, and who may have served either prison or community service sentences, and where their offending histories are affecting their ability to reintegrate into the community and move forward positively. We also support work with people who have experienced sexual abuse or exploitation. That might be historic sexual abuse, or it could be current. or exploitation, and that includes people who may be involved in working with people who may be involved in sex work. Again, not unrelated to that, not always unrelated to that, we also fund work which is around supporting survivors of trafficking and modern slavery, and work with young parents. And by young parents, we define that as young parents who are aged under 21 or under. So we are funding all of those issues in both Ealing and Hounslow. Additionally, in Hounslow, we are also supporting work with people who have learning disabilities. So those are the issues in both Ealing and in Hounslow that we're currently focusing our funding on. If you're applying to us, we would expect that under our complex social issues funding strand, that at least 50%, that 50%, more than 50% of your work would be focused on one of those complex social issues. And we're looking to work with charities who are delivering in-depth work. So supporting people over a period of time in a holistic and person-centered way, and where your focus is on supporting people on a journey of change. So often that can mean quite structured support in terms of really working with people to identify, help them to help identify what are the issues that are affecting them or impacting them, and supporting them to consider what may need to happen for them to move forward, and supporting people to do so. So generally speaking, we would be looking at charities who are working with people at a minimum for at least 3 months. And where you're able to talk about the kind of outcomes that you're supporting people to achieve. The exceptions to that 50% rule, that at least 50% of your work must be focused on one of those complex social issues, is work where charities are supporting young parents, young people leaving care, or survivors of trafficking and human slavery. Because those are such specific areas of support, we will support charities who are delivering work in those areas, but where the work may be less than 50% of all that they're doing. Similarly, charities which are applying under our racial equity strand will be delivering work that's addressing one or more of our complex social issues. But again, it doesn't need to be 50% or more of their work. It could be a smaller element of their work. So that's our complex social issues funding strand. Our racial equity funding is aimed at supporting organisations that are supporting communities that have been historically experienced marginalisation, racialisation, oppression and prejudice. And we are really here recognising some of the inequalities that exists in our communities, and we're wanting to really provide support around that. So we are looking under our racial equity funding that to support organisations where a majority of the board will self-identify as being from a Black or minoritized community, where more than 50% of the charity's work is focused on supporting Black and minoritized communities, and that your work will include some activity that is a targeted in-depth service, which is supporting people experiencing at least one of our identified complex social issues. So just to give you examples there. So we look at all 11 of our complex social issues under our racial equity funding strand. So again, very similar to the issues that were already mentioned as being funded under our complex social issues strand, but additionally you'll see in there that it also includes domestic and sexual abuse, and it's the same whether it's Ealing or Hounslow. It's all of these issues if you are eligible to apply under the racial equity funding strand. And just to give you some examples of some charities we are working with who receive funding who recently received funding from us, that would include, for example, Forward in Hammersmith and Fulham, that supports African women and girls affected by abuse and violence, including FGM. We're supporting West Point, a charity again in Hammersmith and Fulham, which is a community organisation primarily supporting the Somali community, and whose work includes some specific support around supporting refugees and asylum seekers, just to give you some examples there. Something to mention to you is that as an integral part of our of our grant program, we are looking to support charities who are interested in becoming stronger, in developing themselves. And so that so where a charity has a grant from us, we consider you to be our charity partners. And you across the life of your grant, you have access to a range of development support that we offer. And I, as your local manager, would be working with you to identify what your priorities are and what kind of support we might be able to offer. So through our enhanced program, we offer, for just some examples of the kind of development support we offer. It can be consultancy support, for example, to help you with your strategic or business planning. It could be support around looking at your communications. It could be consultancy support to help you to look at your impact, your monitoring, evaluation, and impact measurement. It could be around helping you to look at your fundraising strategy, just to give you some examples of the kind of areas we do provide support here. I think I've been getting a lot of the charities I work with have been asking for support around staff well-being, which is something that we provide as well. So there's a lot of different kinds of support that we offer, and that's support that we pay for to support your charity during the period of your grant. It also includes access to volunteers, for example, through our relationship with Lloyds Banking Group, and also to various learning events and to peer forums and networks. And if you are funded by us, we would keep a regular contact with you to find out how things are going. So regular catch-up calls, and also looking, within that, how we can provide that support to you. It does mean that as part of our application, assessing your application and interest in applying to us, we would be talking to you about what your future aims and aspirations are and where you see that you may have development needs, so that we can talk to you about what kind of support we might be able to provide in that as well. So where you are successful in applying to us, it's not just a grant, it is a grant with that optional offer of a whole range of development support. So I've talked a lot there about what we're looking for. In terms of how to apply to us, it is an online application process. Our first suggestion is that you visit our website. There's guidance there, a lot of different guidance and examples there, and also our detailed eligibility criteria. On our website, you can check your eligibility. You will be selecting either racial equity, if you're eligible for a racial equity strand, or complex social issues. You would be selecting the complex social issue your charity most focuses its work on, and you would then be taken through a sort of a checklist as to check your eligibility on things like, your annual income, your reserve levels, the kinds of things I talked about a little earlier. We would then, if you are eligible, we'd send you a link to take you to our short application form and ask you to complete that online. Once that's submitted to us, it's reviewed by one of our grants officers to confirm your eligibility, and they would also then have a more in-depth conversation with you around the work of your charity and how that fits with what we're looking to work with as well. And if at that point you are felt that it is eligible, you then have a meeting. Well, at present they're virtual, though hopefully at some point in the near future we'll be moving back to face-to-face meetings, and because we do like to come out and meet you where you're working. It would be a more detailed meeting with me to talk about what you do, but again, more of a focus on what you're hoping to do as you move forward in the next 2 years, and beginning that conversation around how we might be able to support you further in addition to any grant we might be able to support you with. Your application would then go to a panel of our trustees for a decision. At the moment, what we say is we're aiming to give you a decision within 4 months of submitting your application. If we can, it will be quicker. And if we find, for whatever reason, that we're not the right funder for you in terms of you're meeting our eligibility criteria, we'll let you know a lot sooner than that as well. If you want a conversation with us before you put in your application, and we're very happy to do that, you can either contact me directly, and I've got a slide coming up which has my contact details on it, or talk to our central team, and again, we'll be happy to help or advise you. Similarly, if you are filling in the form and come onto any difficulty, our central team are happy to help on that as well. So that's taken us through. So it's time for questions. Those are my contact details. I think Ian is going to be circulating the slides afterwards, so you'll have my contact details in any case. But I would, as said, very happy to talk to anyone individually about if they are thinking of putting in an application to us. But for now, I'm going to stop sharing and see if anyone has any questions.
Okay, thanks for that, Sarah. I think Lolan's got a question.
Yeah, hi, Sarah. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Sarah. I'll be very quick. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for Lloyds for actually providing funding, which is really generous. My problem here, excuse me, is that HeartLink, even though we've been affiliated to the British Heart Foundation for 25 years, we have a constitution, we have a proper committee, we support over 300 people, mainly in Ealing, Hounslow and Hillingdon, mainly from the Black and ethnic minority. They all are heart patients. We have no external funding, and based on your criteria, we will immediately be excluded. So that's disappointing. The other thing I want to raise is that I see on your criteria for the racial equality and the complex issues, there is nothing about COVID. There's nothing about older people. You know, HeartLink is very clear. We help mainly older people with heart disease. They are automatically discriminated against because under the health regime, because they don't have access, a lot of them don't have access to smartphones or iPads. So we have found during COVID that, you know, they have really suffered a lot. And that's very disappointing. And I'd like you, if you could, to take that back to Lloyds, because COVID is here to stay. And I think there's a lot more work that can be done to actually address these issues. We're actually filling a gap that the NHS have left. We actually visit them in their homes and we help them with technology to get GP appointments online, to listen to their consultants. So I feel very strongly that that's missing. So basically, Sarah, what I'm saying is, yet again, because we're a support group and we're not a registered charity, even though we do probably just as much as another registered charity would do, we've been excluded as well from funding. And yet again, this happens to us every year. We don't even, you know, we get no funding from anywhere else, and this is where we're at. We're automatically excluded. I know it's not your fault, but I would like you, if possible, to feed that back to your trustees. You know, a lot has changed in the last year, and people like us and my volunteers who do it for nothing, you know, I'd like them to get a little bit of help, and I'd like to help my members by getting a few funds so that we can actually teach them technology so that they aren't excluded from the NHS. So if you could feed that back, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we, just to explain, within the application form itself, we do ask how charities have responded to COVID, because it is something that we look at within the application process. I think what we have to bear in mind is we have a limited amount of funds. So our trustees have to take some really difficult decisions on the issues we're going to support. So for the current time, this is what they've identified. Many of the charities we work with, while we don't specifically fund older people as an issue, we are funding, the charities we work with older people. I think it's, you know, whether if you're having that level of difficulty securing funding, it may be worth talking with Ian or talking with colleagues within Ealing and Hounslow CVS on other funding options, or even to consider, you know, in terms of your own structures, what the best way forward would be for your organization. And I'm sorry, we're not right for you. Our trustees do consider on a regular basis what our eligibility criteria would be. The current criteria are set for this year, but we are currently working on our next forward plan, which we'll be looking at the next 4 years, and that includes looking at the nature, what kinds of organisations we'll work with. But I'll take it back, take your feedback back. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Salma, I think you had your hand up there for a while.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the whole presentation. It looks great. Couple of concerns that I want to find out in terms of the eligibility criteria. So we, as I said in my introduction, that we deliver our work is mainly workshops, and we do startups for women, BME community women. We've just recently worked with, and our predominant focus is women, resettlement program for women when they leave prison, and over 50% of our work at the moment is very much focused on the homeless people. As I said, you know, we deliver home food packages and provide hot meals every Sunday. Now, in terms of criteria, and this for us as a small charity organization desperately struggling to survive, and obviously, and I completely share the views of the lady who spoke before, that COVID has had a devastating impact as far as survival is concerned. We don't get any funding from outside. It's completely donations from friends, family. I put in money in every week for the Homeless Project to survive. And we have just recently delivered project for the women in prison, you know, and again, voluntary area, because everybody's like, people or organizations have got their hands tied back, and then all these different types of criteria. What I want to understand is how flexible are you with regards to, although we meet majority of the work of the identification, but 25,000 income, how serious is that? Because I can tell you, we are definitely struggling and we will not meet that. So I need to understand the flexibility in relation to that particular area, please.
Thank you. It is a hard criteria. We would be looking at your last year's annual accounts, and it is whether the income in your last complete set of accounts as on the Charity Commission would be over £25,000 and under 1 million, because that's the size of charity that we're focused on supporting. There are organisations, funders that will fund smaller organisations than this. And again, I think I'd be signposting you back to Ian and his colleagues, potentially to identify which funders might be the right funders for you. As your organisation grows, potentially we might be one of your funders in the future, but it would sound as if your income in your last set of accounts was under 25,000. We're not right for you right now.
I understand that. Thank you.
There's a lady who just shows as Galaxy S8 who has her hand up.
Jennifer from Clementina Day Centre.
Hi. How can I help?
It's Jennifer. Right. So basically, I run a day centre in Northolt for the past 5 years, and it's a day centre for elderly people with dementia. Would that come under the criteria as mental health problems in terms of funding, or is it just you know, there's no funding for the elderly?
It wouldn't come under the mental health criteria, mental health complex social issue. As I said, we do fund charities who are working with older people, but it's under the complex social issues I've mentioned there on we talked about in the presentation.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I think we have hands up, Ian, correct me, Salma, and then Hippo. Or I don't know if Salma's hand is up from earlier.
Yeah, Hebo.
Hippo.
Hi, my name is Hippo from Lloyds. We are a charity that has been based in Hounslow for the last 16 years. And we work with Black and ethnic minorities, mainly from refugee background. And I wanted to find out about that criteria of vulnerable housing. Does it cover people that are on temporary accommodation? Because we work with a lot of families that are being exploited by private landlords and that live in temporary accommodation. Does that cover the vulnerable housing?
We do count people who are living in temporary accommodation as falling under the homelessness or very vulnerably housed. I think, in terms of looking at the work that you do, it would be asking what the support you're providing there. But as you also mentioned that you work with people who may be asylum seekers or recent refugees. So that could also be an area that it would be worth talking to us about to see what, you know, where it might fit best in terms of potentially applying to us. I don't know if that helps at all.
Yeah, that answers the question. Thank you very much.
Okay. If you want to have a conversation with me afterwards, drop me an email and we can pick it up with a phone call.
Thank you.
And Ian, I'm not seeing any more hands.
Anybody else got any? Zanita.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Just two questions, really. Top of my head. You said you want to work with applications up for young people 17 plus. Is that correct? And is that
our focus is work with adults, and we count adults as being adults of any age and from 17 upwards.
Okay. So that's the strict rule, and there is no flexibility with that. You would work with organizations that work with young people under 17.
We do work with organizations who work with young people under 17, but the majority of their work would be with adults and young people 17 and upwards.
Okay, thank you. And another question is, how do you look at collaborative approach in terms of if there were two of your organizations coming together and put in a collaborative bid? Is that something you consider, or need some sort of partnership letter in place?
We're not really expecting people to apply in partnership because this isn't project funding, it's unrestricted funding. So as an organization applying to us, if that organization meets our funding criteria, meets our eligibility and funding criteria, what it then does with that funding, if they're working with partners, it would be up to them to decide what they're doing with that funding. But we would expect a single applicant.
Yeah, okay. But if they name other partners on the application they would like to work with, is that welcomed or?
Yeah, it's something that we want to work with organizations who are well linked up within their communities and with other organizations. So as part of our assessment process, when we have a conversation with you, we'd be asking, you know, what other relationships do you have or partnerships do you have, and to understand how well you're linked into the if you like, the local ecosystem. And how your knowledge of that. So you wouldn't necessarily have to put it in the application, though you could refer to it, but it's certainly something we talk to you about.
Sure. Okay.
I think the other side of that is because we talk about holistic services, that doesn't mean that we're expecting a single organization to be delivering services that meet every need of an individual. It could be that you're delivering certain things. Say, for example, to give you an idea, you could be working with an organization could be working with people who are experiencing significant mental ill health, and they could be providing support around that and possibly also other areas, but actually where that person needs support around their immigration status or their housing, they may be working with partner organizations that those partner organizations would be providing that support. So when we talk about holistic, we're asking, are you looking at the person in the whole and thinking about where that's what support they may need and what support you might be able to provide, and if for those areas you can't support, where might you be signposting or helping people to get that support elsewhere, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's clear. What I meant is application coming from a lead organization and them listing potentially partners or who they would like them to support with this. Sorry, my dog delivery.
I mean, you see, this, as I said, this isn't project funding, it is unrestricted grants. So if you're then choosing to work on a particular project with other organizations and using your funding to do that, that's your choice.
Sure.
What we'd be asking you about is what's the work of your organization, and seeing how that fits with us. This is we've moved to giving entirely unrestricted grants because if you're an organization that feels a good fit for us, we're going to believe that you know how best to use that money.
All clear, thank you. Makes sense.
And Just
Anybody
looking around.
else? Any
Hello.
question?
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this is Pauline from Mel Productions. You've probably seen us under Michael Francis. I just wanted to quickly ask, do you fund CICs, community interest companies?
I'm afraid we don't. At the moment, to apply to us, your organisation must be a registered charity.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Okay.
So I'll circulate the Sarah's slides plus the recording of the session and the chat file as well. Sarah, when you said that you might be reviewing the criteria, so do you know when you'll be launching your new full year?
And our trustees will be agreeing our new strategy by the end of the year. Our current program is the program we're going to be running until early next year.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking maybe you can come back early next year to when you coincide with the new full year program. You can introduce that. Obviously, in the meantime, people can get in touch with you if they have any.
Absolutely, and really happy to talk to anyone. I've just put my email address in, and it's in the slides, but I've just put it into the chat as well. And Zanetta has her hand up. I don't know if Zanetta has a question.
That might be a carryover from the beforehand.
Okay.
No, I think she just.
No problem. I just wouldn't like to have missed anything. I said, thank you again. We are really very interested in getting applications from Ealing and Hounslow. I was just saying to Ealing before this, Ealing and Hounslow are areas where we do get applications, but not as many as we would like. So we do have funding available. We are interested in working with organisations. We are working with some organisations there already, but we would welcome some more applications if we're the right fit for you and your organisation. And if we're not the right fit, I would, as I've already done, sorry, and I'm flagging back to Ealing and Hounslow CVS because they will be able to provide advice on other funders and other possible funding opportunities.
Yeah, just get in touch with us if you need more support in terms of other. And there's a huge number of different funders out there, so you just have to go through the criteria of each funder to make sure you're applying to the one that meets your particular needs. And obviously, the more funding you apply for, the more that increases your chance of success.
What I would say though is generally, I mean, some funders you can contact before you put in an application, and if they are able to offer that, it's often a really good idea to have just a quick chat, and we really welcome that because it means, you know, we're able to give you feedback early, and hopefully that leads to potentially, you know, us getting the right applications as such. But I think also, generally speaking, funders generally will work to the criteria they publish. We have to, in terms of transparency as well. So looking at what funders are saying they'll fund, also looking at the kinds of organizations they funded previously can be quite a useful way of seeing whether they might be the right fit for you.
Yeah, and I think like Sarah said, it's a good idea to get in touch with the funder. Also, if they've got lots of different programs and strands, to make sure you're applying to the correct strand, because sometimes funds will say, we've got a good application, but just applying to the wrong strand of their funding program. So another thing to bear in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks, Sarah. Thanks for attending. And like I say, I'll send the slides to people after the session. And yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Good luck, everyone, in everything you do and in the work that you do. And thank you for coming and talking to me this morning.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.